Hello everybody, this is Hedgie, and for those of you who do not know who I am a Twitch food and drink streamer, and I am a Twitch food and drink streamer, and I cook basically American comfort food, or whatever else happens to grab my attention at the time. So I do quite a bit of Asian food. I do Italian, I do some Mexican, and I basically I was taught to cook by my grandmother when I was 10 years old, and I have spent the next 44 years expanding on that, both in techniques and recipes, and I have actually written a cookbook. So we're going to be getting that out soon, and meanwhile I'm here on Twitch to show you guys how to cook. And today I am going to be making side dishes, but you could actually do things to I'm going to be making cauliflower cheese, which is a British recipe. It is actually from my mother-in-law and is much beloved by the people in the UK. If they like cauliflower, if they like cheese. You occasionally come across a person who says they don't like cauliflower or they hate cheese, but I find that very suspicious, especially with how beloved this side dish seems to be. So it's cauliflower with a good cheddar cheese sauce, and it is first steamed or boiled or broiled, and then you can you take and make the sauce and you put it in the oven and finish it in the oven. Make the sauce all nice and bubbly and brown slightly on top. And if you wanted to make a main dish of it, you could just put sauteed chicken in it, or beef. Both of those would work really well. I am also going to be making today, and it's what I'm going to get started first, I am also going to be making creamed onions. And these are a recipe I got a long time ago from someone called the Frugal Gourmet, and he had a show on Saturdays in the mornings on PBS, and he was a lovely man. His name was Jeff Smith. He actually has cookbooks out, wonderful, comforting, old-fashioned dishes, which is what I like to collect, so you can see the appeal there. And he made this dish with sweet onions that are basically baked in butter and cream with some cheese on it, and they go all soft and sweet, and they're just a fabulous side dish. So I am going to start this off by cleaning the sweet onions, and these are sweet onions. They have a different shape than a lot of onions do. A lot of onions are more round, like the yellow onions and the red onions. Sweet onions, if they're a proper sweet onion, are shaped like this, which oddly enough is called onion shaped. But yeah, so a sweet onion has a completely different flavor profile from a regular onion. They still have that yummy oniony goodness, but in addition to that yummy oniony goodness, they also they're a milder onion, and they have a great capacity for sweet. And yeah, they don't have sweet onions in the UK. It's not only a varietal difference, but you can make a sweet onion hot by just not watering it. The secret to our Walla Walla sweet onions that we have out here in Washington State is that the Walla Walla sweet onion is not only a varietal difference in the onion, but they also water them all the time so that they have a lot of water. And just like with a hot pepper, If you give the hot pepper a lot of water, it will be a milder pepper. It does the same thing with the onions. If you want to have really hot peppers or really hot onions, then don't water them much and they will be hot. So for this, normally if I'm processing an onion, I'll cut it in half. I'll leave this root end here, which is it looks like that's the root end, versus this end, which is actually the stem end. That's where you get the onion shoots come out of there. And I will leave that root end on because it will hold the onion together. But what I am doing is taking the onion and cleaning off the outside layer and then cutting off each end, and then it just gets cut down the middle. So this will be, I don't normally like to do this because if it squirts out of the way, it's going to cause a big problem. And I could end up cutting myself very badly. So always make sure you know where your fingers are. Even with this, I've got my finger here holding it steady. I have my hand on the top of the blade, and I am very carefully cutting down onto my board. Hi Mav, how you doing? You got your wife there with you, so you're both watching? I have just started making the creamed sweet onions basically by taking a sweet onion and cutting it in half, and then I am putting it into a Pyrex baking dish, which is 8 by 8. They're going to be a little bit crowded in here, but that's okay. And once again, the first thing I do is I cut off the sprout end of this, the end where the onion top comes from, and then I clean the outside layer off. You never want to cook anything with this onion skin because that does not get soft. It stays papery. It will actually gag you if you get it in your mouth. You don't want anything to do with that. That's bad stuff. And I am basically peeling off the outer layer of the onion to get to the good flesh inside. It's going. We got a lot of things going on right now. Of course, my father is in a hospital in a recovery ward, in a recovery center actually, and they are working with him very hard to regain what he lost when he was hospitalized last. And so we are hoping very much that he will be back with us soon. Alright, so I've got the second onion peeled. Now what I need to do is I need to take and cut off this, once again, the root end. And I try to cut off as little of the onion as I can because, well, when you're making creamed onions, you really want to have the onion. So the more onion you can leave, the better. And once again, I am very careful with where my fingers go when I'm doing this, as should everybody. Please, please be careful. Keep your hand flat on the top of the flat of the blade here and brace against the onion and the flat of the blade, so that when you do that and it suddenly goes through, your fingers are not in the way. So I am going to very carefully wedge these into this baking dish, which is a little big for it, a little small for it actually. They're just being set in here like this. It doesn't really matter. It just makes a prettier picture if they are relaxed. And I'm going to try to do a little jigsaw here and get them in here prettier. I could cut them further. It doesn't really matter, but I don't want to. I have no idea what you're doing. Are you doing that, honey? Okay. All right. The next thing we want to do is add a touch of salt. Okay. we want to add a little bit of salt, and this is sea salt. And I am just grinding a little bit on each onion. And then I am going to add just a little bit of pepper on a very fine grind. Okay. So that's roughly 2 grinds per. It's just a very light dusting on top, and I will show you. It's very light dusting, if you can even, there you can see it. Okay, the next thing we need to do is I need my butter, and I need to be able to reach the Parmesan cheese. This has a little bit of cheese on the top of each of these onions, and it has butter on top of each of these onions. And as they cook, that butter is going to sink in between the layers of the onion, and it's going to get all nice and lovely and buttery and creamy and soft and tasty. And because these are sweet onions, they're going to be especially nice and sweet. And that's on purpose. So I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of butter on top of each of these. Yeah, I'm going to end up having to angle these all. Sweet onions, while they're not very deep, they can tend to be extremely large. Hey, Chip Ninja, how are you doing there? I was glad to see you in. Can you give Chip Ninja a shout out? He is a variety streamer for games here, and he's part of the Long Dark community, which is my main support here. And he's a really wonderful guy. He's a lot of fun to watch play, and yeah, he's somebody you definitely want to watch if you can. I will also say that we want to have a shout out for Maverick, who is also a variety streamer here. He has played The Long Dark. He has played Ark Survival Evolved. That's what he's playing presently. He's played Subnautica and a variety of different games. I modded for him. That was actually how we met, was through Stranded Deep. I am putting a tablespoon each of cheese on top of these. Just sort of roughly. It's going to slide around in here, and that's perfectly fine. And definitely need to get more cheese on my next excursion to Costco. Okay, so I have that down now. And then you will pour approximately, that's heavy for a long reach, about a cup of milk. And this is just poured in the dish with it. And I'm getting out half and half here instead of the heavy cream that was in the original recipe. I like it a little better. It's a little thinner. It gives you a little bit more grace than some of the cream does, especially when it gets onto high temperature, which this is baked in the oven at 325. So it is a high temperature, oh my gosh. it is a high temperature application. I am now trying to open the lid of this bottle. 425, I'm sorry, it is cooked at 425. It is a high temperature thing to do. And I am going to add in about half a cup of half and half to this. And then, now I'm gonna go ahead and put a whole cup in. I'm trying to get away with not enough liquid in here, and that's bad because these are basically, there we go. These are basically creamed in the cream and the butter and the cheese. So that will cook down. This is ready to go into the oven now, sweetheart. And where's my Reynolds wrap? Here it is. You put a cover on it so that they don't burn during the first part of the cooking, which is about 20 minutes. And then we add on another 10 to 15 to get it browned on top where we take the cover off. So, and always put it on a tray in case you have a bubble over. You don't want to be having milk pouring all over your stove. Okay, so that's the first dish, and that goes in the oven for 20 minutes first. And that's 20 minutes first on 425. Then you take the lid off and you let it cook another 10 minutes. And that will get it browned up slightly on top with the cheese and all. The next dish I am doing, like I said, is my mother-in-law's recipe for cauliflower cheese. Now, I did make some cauliflower cheese a little while ago. I combined the cauliflower cheese and chicken pot pie in order to make a cauliflower cheese chicken pie, and that was really good. Andrew ate most of it and enjoyed it very, very much. Oh.
Do we need these for this stream?
Yes. I am just cutting the core very roughly out of this. I did a little bit of cleaning up on these before stream because the cauliflower sat in the refrigerator for about a week and got a little too cold, so it made a couple dark spots where it got too cold. So I just trimmed those off. They weren't soft, they weren't mushy, they didn't smell bad, they weren't slimy. It was just a little, you can see some of the ones I left on there. They're just slight discolorations on some of the areas. And grocery stores will not sell them in that condition if they're a good grocery store. Nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly good food, but they do discard it. This is part of the whole dumpster diving thing where some of the food banks are fighting for the right to, once the grocery stores have thrown away their food that they find unpleasantly blemished, the food banks want to go in and get the food that's perfectly healthy to eat. It's not, it's just kind of ugly. And oddly enough, there are things that are trying
to interrupt this stream for something very important.
What's that?
I need milk.
Oh, okay. Are we out of milk now?
No, it's just you've got the milk.
Oh. Well, it's going to go away because that's going in your cauliflower cheese.
I'm willing to sacrifice that part of half and half from my coffee.
Okay. Andrew wanted half and half in his coffee. Can't say I blame him. It's a lovely thing to put in coffee. Adds a nice creamy taste and mouthfeel to the coffee. So, these are 2 cauliflower heads. I did 2 of them because they're kind of puny right now. I don't know why. This should be part of the season for them, so they're, you know, about hand size. I probably got enough for one good batch of cauliflower cheese. They would be about what I would expect in good season for these to be 1 in weight. So this is 2 because they're just tiny. And when I made regular cauliflower cheese for Andrew, just as a side dish, about a week ago, I didn't do it on stream, he ate the entire batch and said num 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 the entire time. So he hasn't had it previous to this in about 6.5 years, because his mother came over from England and she cooked it for him. Teach her how to cook. Are you and Kate talking on the same account? Because that's kind of interesting. Andrew's mom is a really fantastic cook. She's an amazing woman. I have all the respect in the world for her, both as a mother raising a man who is simply extraordinary, and as a dog breeder who has absolutely fabulous dogs, beautiful animals, very well trained, and I would say well behaved, but they are corgis, and a group of corgis together is a mob for a reason. You got to make sure they don't have their hands on the switchblades, because they are very rowdy at times. They're lovely little dogs, very sunny and happy. I love them dearly. But when she came over, she cooked a dinner for us, and I got my first taste of cauliflower cheese, which is different than what we do here in the States, where we take and make a cheese sauce, and then we just, you know, put it over the top of the cauliflower, which we've steamed or whatever. They do it more like they're making macaroni and cheese, and they have so much cheese sauce. Yes, you are in trouble, Tom. They make it more like it's macaroni and cheese, so the cheese sauce is not just a little stripe down it, it is all around it. I've seen people do a paleo macaroni and cheese where they use cauliflower instead of noodles, and it's much of a muchness, is all I can say here. Now what you want to do is cut these up into florets. You want to take out most of the stem and just leave the fluffy part of the cauliflower, the ends here. That would be a floret. And we want to have them be about the same size, so they cook at about the same rate. That's not going to be possible on the very top ones, but that's okay. And I am going to put these into, sorry, I'm giving myself hiccups here. I am going to put it into a, what was that? Okay. I wondered if you were trying to get my attention or something. Andrew tried to scare the hiccups away by going, ah, through the microphone that he's talking to me through. You guys can't hear him, but he's there for me to hear. So like I said, this is just fairly easy. Cleaning this is not hard to do. It is a very comforting dish. Like most comfort foods, it's high in fat. That's not necessarily a bad thing unless you're watching your cholesterol, because they've done more research and found out that something that our grandparents knew and great-grandparents knew, and that's that a high-fat diet is not only high in flavor, it's actually good for you. Getting a certain amount of your calories from healthy fats is good. That's part of what the keto diet says. They eat higher fat foods, and it helps them regulate their bodies. Some people can't handle a lot of carbs, so they get calories from fats instead, and meats and fats basically, and replace the sugars and the sugars and starches for the most part. And diabetics will very often use cauliflower to replace mashed potatoes. They will take and they will first they will cook the cauliflower, and then they will take and mash it. And I've had mashed cauliflower before. It's actually, if they get it smooth enough and they are very careful that they only steam it or they roast it first, it's actually a pretty good substitute for mashed potatoes. They don't taste exactly alike, but they taste similar. And although the texture is a little more grainy, if you put butter and milk in it and run it through a blender or a stick blender, it's going to be a really nice, creamy side dish that's tasty for those who can't have potatoes. So that is an option for some people. And what was that, honey? Yes, people that are on special diets. And then there's some people that want to eat it just because they like it. Cauliflower is a popular vegetable. It is a very hardy vegetable. It tends to last very well in your refrigerator, and it's got lots of vitamins and minerals in it. And it's one of those few vegetables that tastes just as nice raw as it does cooked. So, you can eat raw cauliflower with, a salad dressing dip, or, that's another really interesting recipe to do with this is to do buffalo cauliflower. You can make steaks of this, basically cut big chunks of it, and you can bread it slightly, and you can fry it, and then put your buffalo sauce on it, and that's pretty darn tasty. So you can have the fun of having the buffalo flavor on something that is, well, vegetarian for one, and it is also a little healthier for you than meat sometimes. But as I found out, you really do need to have meat. You can't just ignore it, or your doctor will chase you down and say you've got anemia, like I do. Okay, so I'm almost done cutting up the cauliflower, and then it will go into the pot here, which has, and I added a slight touch of salt to this. I added a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the boiling water so that the vegetables would be seasoned. I didn't add a lot because cheese is very, very heavy in sodium. So now it doesn't take very long to cook this once it gets up to temperature, and I have nothing to put over the top of it so that it will hurry it along. What was that? Okay, so I'm going to do this, turn up the temperature a little bit. It doesn't take very long to cook cauliflower till it's done. If you cook it that way, where you turned it into florets, it takes about 10 minutes. So I am going to take my cute little hedgehog I'm going to use my cute little hedgehog timer here, kitchen timer, and it's going to sit here and go tick, 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 tick at me. A plate will work just as easily, honey. I believe that's the right one. It is. Cool. Okay, so going to talk a little bit about the kinds of things that would go really well with these dishes. These side dishes would work really well with a weekend, what the British call a roast dinner. So you have a roast beef, you have a pot roast, you have a roast chicken or turkey or ham. I know that the cheese, the cauliflower cheese, would go especially good with the ham. But yeah, cauliflower is fantastic, Chip. It is one of my favorite vegetables, but then again, I don't dislike many vegetables. You have to look in the squash family, and I really detest rutabagas and turnips. Part of it is the texture, part of it is the taste. They both taste bitter to me, and it doesn't matter what you do to a turnip. Once it's cooked, it has a stringy texture that I find very unpleasant to swallow, so it actually makes me gag. And we discovered this when I was a child. Excuse me. And my family used to put them in stews all the time, and it made it so I really didn't want to eat the stews. And some squashes have that same texture. They have a very stringy texture, and that would be the gigantic Hubbard squashes. You see them, served up in slabs or even just in slabs in the grocery store, plastic wrapped. And acorn squash and butternut, and all of this has a similarity to my taste that says I don't like it, and that's just me. So it is what it is. I've turned the time up a little bit on that because although the water was steaming, it wasn't really boiling, and at this point it is coming close to a boil, so I set the timer back a bit. Okay, this would also go really well with fried chicken or chicken fried steak. It would really go well with that. It gives you a nice rich side dish basically to go with it. It's good vegetables instead of, you could serve this where you would serve macaroni and cheese as a side dish, and be able to pack in another vegetable into your diet, which is good. As for the onions, those go really well, in particular with roast beef or steaks or meatloaf. And I will be having a meatloaf stream probably sometime in the next month. And for those who are curious, I am drinking Sun-Kissed Orange Zero Sugar Soda, which is actually pretty nice, and it's got caffeine in it too, so that's always good for everybody. Now, upcoming, like I said, I will be making, I am planning on making a couple different kinds of meatloaf. I am planning on making my grandmother's fried chicken and cream gravy or milk gravy and mashed potatoes. And that is just pure comfort on a plate. Grandma didn't do a heavy breading on the chicken, so it's not horrendously bad for you. As a matter of fact, all she did is take the chicken, rinse it off, pat it slightly dry, and then she would just roll it in flour and throw it into corn oil. She always used corn oil, and It made a very light, very crispy coating on the chicken. I'm not going to say breading because it really wasn't breaded. It's just a light coating of flour. And then when she was done cooking the chicken, it had left little crispy bits in the bottom of the frying pan, and she would scrape those up and add flour to it to make a roux that also incorporated all those lovely crispy bits and the cooking oil from the chicken, so it was chicken flavored. And then she would add milk to it and salt and pepper, and that was that. It's as basic as you can get, and it's just love on a plate, basically. My husband didn't think he was going to like it when I described it to him, but he did like it. And as he put it the first time I made it for him, he says, "Yeah, this is not low calorie, is it?" No, it is not. I am going to take advantage of the fact that I have got a second burner here that I can actually use with the second pot, and I am going to start getting the sauce for the chicken ready. Hey Shadow, how are you doing? Thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate you showing up for my stream, and thank you very much for the follow. So this basically is going to take about 6 tablespoons of butter. Yeah. So I'm going to get out my other stick of butter. And if you've never seen a butter stick before, it is divided into tablespoons. So you can easily know if you make sure you leave that side on for reference. You can cut through the outside of the butter in the container or the paper so that you're exact on the markings, but it's not really necessary. You can see it when you lay it on the table. If you take your butter down here, you can see the marks along this side. So it's an easy enough guide. And I am going to take, that needs to have the top taken off and another 10 minutes added. So I am going to add everything but 2 tablespoons to this to make the roux for the cheese sauce. And we have got only a few minutes left on the cauliflower. I'm going to start this off at a medium heat. The cauliflower is at a medium high. Probably you would be doing it on a higher heat in any other sort of pan, but this is a Cuisinart hard anodized pan. Both of these are, and they actually can cook. You get the same amount of heat. You get the same amount of heat from cooking on high that you would in this at a medium high, because it has a plate in the bottom of it that when it gets heated up, it is a nice even heat. It's a radiant heat that comes up through it, so it's better than either a flame, which has definite hot spots, or even a coil stove, because again, it's got a definite hot spot. And okay, so I've got this side going. It's melting the butter, and I am going to measure out. Take this. I've got the cup measure with a little bit of leftover cream in it. I want to get that out. And then I've got the half cup measure here, which I'm going to use for the flour. You want to have a little bit more of the fat than you have of the flour, because you need to have your roux, which is flour and butter cooked together. You want to have it be like wet sand or a little bit wetter than that, and that needs to have the fat source be more than the flour, the dry ingredient. So I have now got half a cup of flour. I'm going to go slightly scant on that. And I do believe that, ouch. Okay, I'm going to take some of this out, and I'm going to take a fork, and to test if it's done, you just push it into the cauliflower, and if it sinks in easily, you're where you need to be. And this is where I need to be, so I need to have my husband come in and grab it to go drain it. And yes, this is a hot plate. I don't have real cooking space in the kitchen. It shouldn't be hot anywhere. Okay. So now I am going to turn the heat off on the second burner and move it over here to the main one, because when my husband brings the cauliflower back out, he's going to put it directly into its casserole. I'm making room with my little butter bits. And now I have a half a stick of butter there that's kind of orphaned. That's okay though. It'll get used on toast and such. Okay, thank you, honey. So now we have this. And I need to start watching this, because one thing you do not want to do is burn your butter. And it's easy to do. So I'm going to add the flour to it. And now I take a whisk. And for this case, it is a plastic whisk, because you do not want to use metal inside your non-stick pans. It's just a bad idea. And there's the timer for the cauliflower. You see that was a pretty close approximation of time there. So what you need to do is whip this around until it is smooth and looks like wet sand, basically. And then it needs to cook for a few minutes, because what you're trying to do here, I was just looking at it to make sure I had everything incorporated, because I don't have a perfect view of it, even from watching my stream.
You got a view right there.
Well, yeah, but okay, my husband's coming out and heckling me. So for that, Pink Pig is going to come out and say, I am a child, yes I am. So I've got this off to the side here, holding some heat in. And this needs to cook about 4 minutes roughly, and what that will do is cook the flour so it doesn't taste like, well, raw flour. You don't want to have that taste in what you're in your sauce, and you will if you don't cook it all the way. So it actually changes color. It first goes a little whitish when it starts cooking, and then it will brown again slightly. You can take this same roux and cook it a lot more, and it will get it will actually go all the way to a chocolate color without burning. And that is the roux you would use to make a gumbo. The flour gets a very nutty flavor then, and that is the level of doneness for a roux for like a gumbo. Alrighty then. So that's gonna cook for about another minute. And then I will start adding milk and cream to it. I am done with the flour, so I will move that one aside. And I'm going to add a cup of half and half, and it's going to be 3 cups of milk to it. And yeah, that does look like it is done. So I am going to put that 1 cup in and keep it stirring while I pour the others, because the milk and cream, when it goes into a roux, will start thickening immediately. There's half of it. And you want to make sure that you stir all the way around on the bottom and the sides, because where the heating element comes into this on the pot is where your thickening will start. It will cling to the sides and bottom, and that is not the best thing to have happen. It can burn if it's there, and that will make it so that the entire container tastes like, well, burned milk, and that is no bueno, no good. And if all you have to do is remember to keep stirring it and turn the heat down a little bit. This wants to be between medium and medium high. You do not want this to ever boil. If it boils, you're going to scald the milk, and you may very well end up with separated sauce, which is, again, no good. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't look good. It has a horrible feeling in your mouth. Feels like you're eating cheese curds that don't taste quite right. And a cheese sauce comes together relatively rapidly. So, and if you over thicken your cheese sauce, if you let it, or your milk, or even if it's just this milk sauce as you have it right now, which is called a bechamel. It is one of the mother sauces. There are 7 mother sauces that all of the sauces in the world are based in. I'm going to get that out of the way. So it needs to cook a little bit longer. I'd give it another 10 minutes. I think we need to get an oven thermometer, because I don't think our oven is as hot as we think it is. And that is something else. Hey, Acidic Virus, how you doing there? I'm glad to see you come in here. This is one of my supporters from the UK. He is a variety streamer and a long dark streamer. If my mod could kindly give him a shout out, that would be awesome. He is in the UK, and he is that person I mentioned that neither likes cheese nor cauliflower, so he's not going to like the cauliflower cheese. I'm doing good. How are you? It's very late night for you there. 2 a.m.? Close to 3, I'm guessing? Anyway, he's a great time for watching as a gaming streamer, so yeah. I am also making creamed baked onions, basically. I'm doing side dishes this time because our refrigerator is absolutely chock full of main dishes. So we need the side dishes to go with them. So I'm making cauliflower cheese and creamed baked onions. Now, as I was starting to say, and I told Andrew that, yeah, the onions need to cook a little bit longer. Oh, hey, I appreciate that, AB. I really, really do. It's lovely to see you in my stream and lovely to have you comment. That's absolutely wonderful of you. Now, this is getting very close to a sauce, so I need to now add the cheese, and I also need to add I'm going to take this off the heat so it doesn't go too far. I need to quickly check my mother-in-law's recipe, and it is a 1/4 teaspoon, but I'm making a double batch, so I need a 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard. Okay, I have got, that's a 1/16, that's an 1/8, that's a 1/4. I am going to do 2/4 teaspoons to make a 1/2, and I mean, it's not a lot of mustard to add to this, and it really can't be the prepared mustard because that has vinegar in it, but it is very important to the flavor that you add the mustard into it. It adds a richness and a tanginess that it will not have otherwise. So I am just whisking that in till it's smoother, and then it is asking for 2 cups of cheese, and that is shredded sharp cheddar, and because I'm making a double batch, that's 4 cups of cheese, which I happen to have here, which, if you don't know the measurements for that, for cups, that is 16 ounces or a pound of cheese added to it. And then we just need to get the cheese melted here. And I'm going to put it back on the heat because it is starting to lose some of its definition here. I need to get it to go a bit further in the sauce direction. And although I didn't show it, the way you tell whether it's, I'll show it now. The way you can tell whether or not it is actually forming a sauce is if it coats the back of a spoon. And when I put it in there, you can see that the milk, you see how I can actually draw a line through it and it stays? That's because it's actually a sauce. If it doesn't do that, if it doesn't have that definition in the sauce when you test it on the back of a spoon, it needs to cook further. So I've got half of it in there. I'm now going to add the other half because the first half has melted. And my mother-in-law basically told me it has to be a good quality cheddar. You want to have a full flavored cheddar, which in this case means sharp. The others will just not be as strong of a cheddar-y flavor. we want the cheddary flavor. So I want to melt the cheese that's in here, and I'm going to add a little bit more milk to it because it's thickening up too much. And I added maybe a 1/4 cup of milk there to thin it. And it's going to be a different color in America than it will be in England or possibly even in Canada, because I know that England doesn't add the dyes to the cheese that America does. I don't know why we think the cheese needs to be orange, but apparently we feel it needs to be orange in order to be cheese. So we add annatto to it, which is an orange colored spice, but it also adds a slight flavor to it that you will not find in British cheeses. And I am done with that. And what I now need to do is take this cheese sauce that I have made and move it to the side while I bring in the baking dish, which is big enough, by the way, to stick a whole chicken in. And I have been cooking in this pot, in this particular baking dish, as long as I have been cooking. So this is well over a 40 to 50-year-old pot, because my mama had it before this. And it was just something that was a basic staple. She made roasts in it, and she made dishes from her mother in it, and it was just passed down, basically. Hey, Glittered Kitten, how are you doing? Nice to know they diet in Canada too, Chip. Thanks for verifying that. So this is cauliflower cheese with a lot of cheese because, well, we like it that way. It's actually a little more than it calls for, but that doesn't hurt anything. At this point, if you wanted to make this a main dish, you could add leftover roast to it. I'm doing pretty good, Kitten. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate that. I know that you're awfully busy these days. Glittered Kitten is the one who makes my emotes and who has done the artwork that will very shortly be showing up on merchandise. I'm not sure when my husband is still in the kitchen or not. This then needs to go into the oven and cook for about 20 minutes. Okay, well, the cauliflower cheese needs to go in the oven now if you have room. Yeah. So as I said, you can put in leftover roast beef. You could put in chicken very easily, like rotisserie chicken you have left over, or rotisserie chicken you bought on purpose just to do this. That goes so well with this cheese. My mouth is actually watering. I know what this is going to taste like, and it is going to be good. I'm going to taste some of the cheese sauce here because I can. And it won't have that baked flavor. Okay.
Is that done?
Yep. Careful, careful, careful. And this is the creamed onion, which I'm going to let cool here for a little bit. Oh, that's a good sauce. You can't really sit there and say, oh boy, this has mustard in a cheese sauce. But mustard just complements cheese, and it enhances the cheese flavor that is in the cauliflower cheese. Okay. So this is a Pyrex baking dish. Hey LD, how are you doing? Coming in kind of towards the end here, but I'm still in the yapping stage. So what I've got that has just come out of a 425 degree oven is creamed sweet onions, which has...
Does that need to be turned down?
No, it needs to stay the same temperature, 20 minutes. Basic recipe, so very tasty. This goes well with your roast dinners like chicken, turkey, roast beef, meatloaf, things like that. Really goes well with steak too. This is smoking hot, and I'm going to use this to slightly tilt it away from me. I don't believe that heat's still on, but I could be wrong, so I'm going to move it completely off this. As I have mentioned ad nauseum, this is a really nice Farberware hot plate, and these two discs it have on it are they're solid cast iron, so once they heat up it takes a while for them to cool down. So putting my pan over onto the one that I had melted butter on it, if I put my hand over it, I still wouldn't put my hand down because it's still hot. So this is the creamed sweet onions, and it is sweet onions with salt and pepper, and it has 2 tablespoons of butter on each half of the sweet onion. And can you give LD a shout out too? He is one of the people who finally broke through and got me convinced that I needed to stream. Long Dark Forever, he plays the Long Dark, and he does play other games, but that was how I met him, was he was playing the Long Dark, and he has a great community that follows him. And he is also a professional chef, so I'm very, very flattered that he likes seeing my streams. So these are 2 sweet onions that I cut in half and put a little salt and pepper on them. And then I put 2 tablespoons of butter on each, a tablespoon of Parmesan cheese on each. And then I put in a cup and a half of half and half in here, and then it was popped into the oven at 425, covered for 20 minutes, and then took the top off and cooked it for another 20 minutes. And I'm waiting for this to cool enough that I can get it out and put it into something so that I can show you all how lovely it is. And like I said, my mouth is watering here. I'm not doing any main dishes today. This is a side dish that, like I said, goes really well with roast. This would be wonderful at a Thanksgiving dinner. You could take and, get a big casserole dish like an 11 by 13, 9 by 11, something like that, and put a series of onions in it and do this and let it roast in your oven with the cream and the butter, salt and pepper and cheese. And it will just make this lovely, sweet, soft baked onion that is just well enough to be a main dish if you like onions enough. And then I'm also making my mother-in-law's recipe for cauliflower cheese, which is a sharp cheddar sauce made with some ground mustard in it. And then you basically smother the cauliflower, which is already steamed or boiled, and then you throw that into the oven for 20 minutes so that the cheddar has a chance to get all bubbly and browned on top. And that is a very traditional side in the UK. I can mention it to everybody from the Scottish through the Irish and the English and they all recognize it. It shows up on their dinner tables too. Unless you're like AV and you don't like either cheese or cauliflower. So what have you been up to, LD? Were you working today? I think I'm gonna have to add. Oh, it's your day off. That's awesome. I am gonna add a few of my little happy Hedgepig emotes that Kitten made for me, including our new one, which is a sad Hedgie at the end. The animated one that you see at the beginning, that was made by Professor Niels, and that is the beloved pink pig having a little dance there. Your day would have been one to sleep through. Was it hectic or really just boring? Are either one of you guys going to be streaming tonight? I know that Maverick, who is also watching my stream right now, is going to be streaming tonight. Okay, I am going to take one of my really nice, it's basically a soup pot that you can put in the oven. It has handles, it's pottery, it can go from the oven to the microwave, it can go in the freezer, it can go anywhere you want it to go, and it probably won't crack. It's been really good for me. So I am going to take one of these onions, I think this one, which is closest to me, and I am going to scoop this little bad boy up and put it into here. So I have a pretty little onion here, and I am going to use a scoop to get some of the extra sauce in here. To get some of the yummy, creamy unctuousness that we've got with us. And I will have my husband take a picture of it, and then I'm going to taste it for y'all. And you could make this with a regular yellow onion. You could make it with a red onion. I know they don't have sweet onions in the UK, poor little things. And I think I surprised him. I don't think he thought that I was going to be ready quite so soon. Now, just to make it extra pretty, I am going to sprinkle a tiny bit of parsley as a finisher on this. Parsley adds a nice fresh taste to things, and in addition to that, it's pretty, and it has iron in it, so that's all good. So here I've got a picture for you all of what the baked onion looks like, and I'm going to hand that off to Andrew. Did you want to take it with my camera? No, apparently not. Okay. His camera works too. And I have got these cooked so that they still have some definition to the onion. You can take it a lot further than that if you wanted to add another They detest parsley where you work? Okay. Yep, that looks great. Now, I like parsley because parsley has a lot of iron in it, which I've always been kind of short of. So I am going to take and cut this onion, and it is soft, but it will still hold its shape. So it is at a really nice stage of being baked. And if you like onions, this is a yummy, yummy way to do it. So I'm going to take some of this here, make sure I have sauce on it. And then, you can't see what I'm doing, I just basically cut a piece out of this. It's on my fork now. Oh, yum. The onion is just turned soft, so it still has a bit of resistance to it. It's not like buttery soft, which if you probably cooked it another 15 minutes, it would be. And being cooked, the sweet onion has gained even more sweetness. It combines really well with the butter and cream that it was cooked in. And the Parmesan cheese just adds a little bit of saltiness to it, which it needs because I did not salt this heavily. Just very, very lightly. And that's just, this would complement, like I said, roast beef so well. When you use a sweet onion, it has the same flavor without being browned, without being caramelized. It has the same flavor as if it was a caramelized onion. So there is a lot of absolutely lovely sweetness to this. And it would go so well with roasted meats. And that's basically what it was intended for. That is so good. I'm going to put that aside now and ask LD, as a chef, when is he going to do his next cooking stream? Because I have caught the VODs of them, but I've never managed to make one live. And I know he has done some really good cooking streams. There's one he does that's called Sneaky Noodles, and it's made in a Instant Pot. And I know that he did that one for Glittered Kitten, I believe. It's either that or Tina Bug, one or the other. Were telling me that LD gave them the recipe for it. And he also did a stream where he made escargot. And that's kind of a fussy thing to make. It's a bit more skill level and knowing what you need to do to have those right. I would love to get notice of that, LD. I would love to see you cook something. Do you have any idea what you might be wanting to cook, or are you kind of leaving that up to whatever you feel like at the time? Yeah, I think a lot of people in our generation, LD, did learn from our grandmothers. By the time we came around, women were having to work. It became suddenly not a one earning home in order to actually have a good lifestyle. In order to be able to provide for your family, it's been needed to go to a two income home. So the women, there was all the talk about, yay, let's get women have their own careers. They now have a life like men did. They had the opportunity to make something of themselves. other than just being a wife and homemaker. But that did force them out of the home and out of a position where their mothers had the time to cook for the family. That was basically why I learned to cook, because my mom was working full-time, long commute away, and by the time she worked as a bank teller. So she was on her feet. They required her to wear high heels. No one could see her feet, but she had to wear high heels to work, and standing on her feet for 8 hours a day, and then, an hour commute in and maybe an hour and a half home or longer, because sometimes she was on the bus. She didn't have a lot of oomph left. So Grandma taught me to cook, and I took over cooking dinner, and Mom and I would plan what we were having for the week, and we would go out shopping on the weekends for it. And then I would make the meals throughout the week, and I enjoyed it. That was how I got my allowance money. And it was something that I developed a deep love of doing. I was providing for the family. I was feeding them. I was, my grandmother teaching me her recipes for my father was a loving gesture, basically, from mother to son, so that my father could have some of these flavors and recipes and tastes that he grew up loving, and I could pass them on. And that's what I've done in my cookbook, actually. Most of the people who have become chefs that I've talked to, whether they are a fully trained chef and they may be an executive chef, or just the head of a brigade, they may be a sous chef, they may be just a line cook. They learned from a grandmother or a mother first, and found out they really liked it, and pursued a career then in cooking. And oddly, traditionally, that's been a man's role. Women didn't work outside the home. So most of the chefs that you see talked about, a generation ago, they were all men. And it's nice to see the women breaking into the market there. But like I said, women are in the market because they had to be. They had to find a way to add to the income of the home, because just one income wasn't enough anymore. And that's made it so, another generation down the line, my generation, if they didn't teach their kids to cook, they didn't learn. And go down another generation from that, my nieces and nephews are getting old enough. They're anywhere between 19 and I believe 31 is my oldest nephew. They're old enough to have their own kids now, and they really didn't learn to cook, and so they're not going to be able to teach their kids to cook, and that's a shame. We're losing a lot. We're losing family recipes that can be passed down because nobody bothered to write them down, and you know what? Now grandma's gone. Or aunt is gone, and that's just a crying shame. We're losing a lot when we do that. Hey, Tina Bug, welcome in. I'm glad to see you. I have got here in front of me, these are creamed baked onions, and it is simply a sweet onion that's cut in half, salt and peppered. You put 2 tablespoons of butter on top of each one, and then a tablespoon of Parmesan cheese on each one. And then you add in a cup and a half of half and half to it and put it in the oven on 425 covered for about 20-25 minutes. Then take it off and put in, let it cook for another about 15-20 minutes to get the top a little browned. Not a lot. It hasn't got a lot of cheese in it, so it's not really going to brown, but it gives you the taste of a caramelized onion in a soft baked onion that really, really works well with roast dinners, roasted meat. You know, serve this on the side instead of something else. When you make a meatloaf, maybe add this on the side for a roast chicken, or if you get a rotisserie chicken, you know, go ahead and make this as a side dish. It doesn't take that long. It's really, really simple. Exactly, AV. That is exactly why I got into looking into these recipes, because we had a woman in our family that everybody went to her house when it was holidays. She was my great aunt. She was my great aunt, and she made everything from scratch. She would cook for days before Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and such. And as far as I could tell, she never wrote a single recipe down. They were all in her head. She made all her own bread. She did all her own sides. She did everything from scratch. And I will get this out of the way. And here is the cauliflower cheese out of the oven. I wish you could see the, can you get the other pan lid out of the way so I can put this down? Thank you. And I always asked her, everybody, she'd have like 20 people come to her house. She'd make 5 different pies because she wanted to give each person their favorite pie. And I asked her about her recipes, and she said she was going to give them to her daughter. And she died suddenly and unexpectedly, and they're gone. We have one recipe of hers that's written down, one, and it's for a cranberry relish. That's it. And all of her breads, all of her pies, all these things she used to make, all of her lovely side dishes and special things that she made for everyone, they're gone, just gone. And that's a tragedy, because the flavors and the smells and the tastes that you had when you were in some of the best and warmest times of your life at holidays or special occasions, having access to that recipe that your grand made or your aunt made or your father or mother made, it brings them back when they're gone. And that is something that is just a tragedy to lose. And I spent a good 25 years trying to track down versions of my great aunt's recipes, and I have managed to recover some recipes that are similar enough I can play with them and make it so they taste a close approximation of what I remember. And she was with us until I was in my late teens, so I did have the opportunity, once I had started cooking, to observe some of her cooking that she did and get an idea of what was in some of her recipes. But like I said, she never wrote it down, and those recipes are gone. And I swore up and down I was not going to let that happen to another generation. So I chased people down and I asked them for their recipes so we wouldn't be lost. Now this is the cauliflower cheese, and it has just come out of the oven, so it is slightly browned on top and smoking hot. And this is a very simple recipe, but oh so good, from my husband's mother to me to make for him. And you could use this wherever you would use macaroni and cheese for a side dish. You could do it for a keto version of macaroni and cheese, or you could do it, add, like I said, leftover roast or chicken to it, and you've got a side dish into a main dish. So I am going to make this up for my husband because I know he's going to gobble this down. And now I've got to clean the edge because I glopped all over it. Paper towels trailing everywhere. Okay. So here we go. Here is the, I hope it focuses. Here is the cauliflower cheese, and as you can see, it's a lot more of a profound amount of cheese than we put on our cheese with cauliflower dishes here. And I will show again for those who haven't seen it. This is the baked sweet onion and cream. Perfect. And I will now let my husband have his cauliflower cheese, and I will portion up another one because I want some too this time, darn it all. And it's not going to make as pretty of an impact because I chose a yellow dish, so it's not going to show up as well as it did for the on the blue dish. But cauliflower is one of my favorite vegetables, and this is just one of the most comforting ways I've ever had to do this, to have it. So here we go, the cauliflower cheese. This is very, very hot. And this is just a white sauce, which is a bechamel, that is combined with some ground mustard and sharp cheddar. And here's the nice bit of it here. I think it's gonna focus, it might not. Oh, that is so good. Oh, that's so good. The cheddar sauce is rich, it's creamy, it has a depth of flavor to it, which I think it owes to the mustard, because I've made this with the mustard and without, and there is a difference. You don't say, wow, that tastes like mustard, but you do notice it when it's not there. And as I said, that would be so good to have with meatloaf or a chicken dinner or roast beef. That would be wonderful with all of it. So I need to find someone to raid out to, and I need to see whether or not, let's see who we've got out here. I do not see Maverick Plane. Let's see who I've got. Who I have. I don't have anybody that is a cook that I see out there. I see Hambone. So let's try, let's see if how far he is into playing. About 2.5 hours. So why don't we raid Hambone and tell him all about the wonderful food that I have cooked. It does look very cheesy. I want to thank you all for coming, and I am going to try to stream again either Saturday or Sunday. Probably will be Sunday. And Yeah, I'm sorry you kind of missed the beginning of it, but you can watch the VOD to see what else is up. And I want to thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next time, and I'll see you in your own streams. So